everyone, and welcome back to the Grimm Chronicles. My name is Kathy Grimm, and the channel is The Grimm Reader, and I'm here to give you my weekly reading update from last Tuesday. I think I'm the only person perhaps on the booktubes who does their update on Tuesdays, but it's just during the semester when I teach at a university, Tuesday is a prep day between, I teach Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and it just so happens that it's the best day for me to film. Like I'm still sort of fresh enough, and it's also, I don't teach that day, so I have time in the afternoon, and I haven't started teaching yet, but it is looming. 2 weeks, so next week we have our beginning meetings, and I think even like officially we're supposed to be going back to work next week. I mean, with professors it's a little bit vague. And I actually, because I am me, meaning I need more time and I'm very particular about my spaces and everything, I went back yesterday for the first time, and I spent a lot of time just kind of getting used to being back in my office and setting things up and putting things in drawers and making the drawers kind of perfect, because that's just how it has to be for me. I think I've mentioned this a number of times. Most of you know that I am a teaching professor, so I'm not like in a certain sense, I'm not a real professor in the sense that I don't have to do research. It's not a part of my contract, and I am fine with that for reasons that we don't need to get into right now. It's the perfect job for me, and also being kind of older, I am sort of thinking about retirement, and so I will do it for until I'm 65, which isn't that long. It's like 6 more years. And so yeah, anyway, I don't even know why I'm telling you that, but I am. So yeah, it was really good to go back there yesterday. My reading since last week, so let's get into the books. So I am participating in Garb August, and it's been very interesting for me to read formulaic stuff that I just never read, for reasons that I went into last time. And so I did DNF one book. I DNF'd, and I'll put a picture up here because it was on my Kindle, Flowers in the Attic by V.C.Andrews. And I think it goes to show, for me at least, that even in the world of whatever we call garbage literature, there's good garbage and bad garbage. And I think V.C.Andrews, at least that novel, is horrendous. It's extremely poorly written. It's creepy in its subject matter, and it seems sort of like to build up to these creepy moments in a way that it was just very off-putting for me. So the subject matter was not to my liking, and I'm fine with creepy subject matter if it's, I don't know, done in an more interesting way. I mean, I liked, for example, this is the opposite of garbage in a certain sense, although some people don't like him, the French writer, and I'm probably not going to pronounce his name. I only read one novel, Houellebecq. Is it Michel Houellebecq? I read Serotonin, somewhere on my shelves. And I actually liked it, even though the narrator is an awful person, like a whatever, a creepy guy. But he's funny, and it's well written, and it kind of engaged me. And so I have no problems with effed upness if it's done in an interesting, intriguing way. But this was just, I keep saying effed up, but it was sort of so effed up. It was just really badly done, and also sort of, you could tell that the writer was sort of wanting to be kind of creepy about things, like and I stopped reading, and then I would skim because things get progressively worse for these kids in the attic, of course, and all these kinds of weird things happen, including the I mean, spoiler, but the incest stuff, which I didn't really read very closely, but it's just, oh gosh, I just couldn't do it anymore. And I was just not enjoying myself at all. So I gave up because, what's the point? It was not fun at all. And so then what I did was I started the book that was sent that I won in the giveaway with very low expectations by now. And you know what? This is actually fun. This was actually good. I like this. I finished it. It's a very quick read, even for a slow reader like me. And part of me thinks that if I had kind of gone the route of being obsessed with pulpy stuff, I would have become a quicker reader. I've always been sort of picky about it, and it's connected to studying at the university, so I take my time. I've never been a voracious reader, but it's really quite well done. I mean, it was a very interesting read. So it's about this one-man army. He's almost like Rambo. He's unrealistically able to be in control of every moment of any scenario, and these are moments that involve him killing people, and it's connected to his having been in the war. There is a bit of a backstory, very limited, so it's very stark. And you don't get a lot of character. You get enough, and the little bit that you get is quite well done and believable. But it's and the good thing about it is it has a very fast clip, so you can move along from one thing to the next. So you're never sort of bored, or it's never meandering. So it's very tightly written. And it's sort of like a good TV or movie, of the 70s perhaps. And he's actually quite a good writer in this formulaic way. I mean, it's sort of like you have to smile sometimes because it is kind of unbelievable, this guy, how good he is. And let me see if I can find a little, I should have marked up so yeah, it's definitely, I would call it a noir. Like it has that kind of, Humphrey Bogart, I forget his name, the Sam Spade, whatever kind of tone for what I would call it, not being an expert in this. And so this is introducing one of the gangsters. So it's all about this one-man army guy, Mark Bolan, fighting the underworld of Boston, the mafioso underworld of Boston. And I won't go into the plot too much because in case some people do want to read it, there is something else going on here that makes it more, the reason why he's doing it is quite well done too. So the setup is good too. It's plausible, even though his ability to do what he does is completely implausible, but you still kind of buy it because it's just so well done. So let me just read this one introduction to one of the gangster people. Books Figuroni had never been a street punk. He'd grown up in the suburbs without the daily pressures of mere survival. He'd had the benefit of a good education and exposure to the social graces, and he generally behaved as a respectable citizen, on the surface at least. The attorney had probably never pulled a trigger on another human being, that's Books. His hands were clean. Only his soul was dirtied, stained by scores of wrecked lives and ruined careers, and damned to hell by more sins against humanity than any book could record. So you see, it has that kind of overdone stuff, but it's almost as if this kind of book has to have that. I mean, and it has that punch to it. So in a way, this was a thoroughly enjoyable read. I think I give it 4 because, I'm not going to give it 5, but that's only because my 5-star reads are, special to me, my Thomas Manns, etc. But it was really good. And you know what? If I'm not going to go out of my way to buy another one, but if I'm ever in a used bookstore and come across a Don Pendleton and it's a different town, he has a whole bunch, I would probably buy it, or if it's at a library sale. So now that I know it, I might okay, sure, this would be perfect for like a journey, like a plane or something read. So thank you, this was great. So I finished that, and this is the only time I'll ever finish more than one book. And that's only because it was this one, which is pictures. It's just the pictures of the actual episode, which I had seen. I did have memories. It's a famous episode of where they go back in time to, it's so hokey, to stop McCoy from doing something so that the space-time continuum, so that they all can, well, it's actually hokey, but it's kind of interesting. So they come across this weird thing on the planet, and if they don't do it, they'll all kind of, I think they would have to go back in time. And so what's interesting about that is the actress who recently passed away, I think her name was Nicole Uhura, Captain Uhura is there. And one thing in terms of continuity that I noticed is that sometimes she's actually kind of wearing leggings, I would say, like less transparent tights. And then other times, even when she's on the same planet, see if I can find a picture. She's wearing the skimpy little skirt with the pantyhose that they made the ladies wear, because it's the 60s and it's just the way things were. I can't find a picture of it, but there's definitely kind of differences in transparency of her. But that's the point. The point what I get at is that they would have to go back in time. At least you'll be alive somewhere. At least you'll be alive in some past world somewhere. If this things happen. And then there's this nice panel here where she says, "Captain, I'm frightened." And of course, you can't have, why she's frightened. Of all people, she would not want to go back to, 19th century, whatever, America. And I think that's kind of what they're getting at there. I'm sure that's what they're getting at. And so I guess this is one of those examples of Star Trek being kind of hinting at certain, political stuff and those issues. And then, of course, the main lady of this episode is Joan Collins, who probably was really good in this role of Kirk's love interest. And, I mean, of all people to have leading the Salvation Army, what a babe. But that's how, and I have to say, reading it, all the hokiness of it is even more heightened than I think if you see it on camera. I don't know why. Maybe because it's just the pictures. The pictures themselves are if you've ever paused the video on a show in some place where they're grimacing inadvertently, that's kind of what you have here. That's the whole book. And but it was fun to read. I don't even know what I gave it. I think I probably gave it 3, because it's fun and it's a classic, and I'm glad I have it. And I was looking up Harlan Ellison a little bit, and he was kind of like a not very likable person. Like, he was very belligerent and mean to people, which reminds me, I actually a tangent here. This morning I almost did a tag video. I almost did the "Damn, I'm old" tag, because you know what? I'm old. And one of the things that I was going to talk about is going to a science fiction convention, because my mother was a science fiction writer. And this was 1979, and it was in England. And I had in the back collected autographs of writers, and also Christopher Reeve, and also Richard O'Brien from Riff Raff from Rocky Horror, because they showed Rocky Horror there at the convention. Science fiction, I guess it has a science fiction element. But I think one of the signatures was Harlan Ellison. Well, maybe not. I don't know. I don't want to go get it, but it doesn't matter either way. But yeah, he wasn't the most likable person. And I don't know if I've read anything of him besides this, which, and I think he did do other things for Star Trek. And I'm pretty sure you could probably find an actual novel, like text version of this too. But, being the multi-franchise thing that it was, they have to kind of get you in every way. And this would be good for kids. Kids could read this. That's probably was the target audience, young fellows mainly. So that's that. And so over the week, that's kind of all I've been focusing on. I haven't really gotten to my Fontane, but what I have done, and I don't even know how to address it, is I think it has to do with school starting. So I would call it manic rabbit holes. I get manic in finding something that I'm somewhat interested in, and then that leads me to something else, and it leads me to something else, and it leads me to something else, and it's never ending. Like routinely I have 30 tabs open on here, and it's all somewhat interesting, but it's too much to really go into in any great detail. But I would say the focus of my rabbit holing would be texts and books focusing on ecological stuff, sort of deep ecology, and other things too, but that was the main one. And so I think I can mention a couple of the books. I don't really have that much to say about them, but one of the books, and it was connected to a TED Talk that I watched, James Bridle, a young British artist and writer. He's written a book called Ways of Being, and it's about broadening our understanding of what it means to be, of conceptions of intelligence. And he starts off with a kind of political thing about artificial intelligence being co-opted by the fossil fuel industry to help it get the last drop of oil out of the planet. And he's like, well, that's not really intelligence. That's not intelligence. That's the opposite of intelligence. That's stupid. And so he uses that as kind of a gateway into. And so it's the kind of book where I haven't bought it yet, but so many people seem to love it, and it led me to other people too, more sort of philosophical people. But I think I probably will get it. So I guess this is sort of a preview of maybe Nonfiction November. I'll probably get it. And so the one book that I did already get, and then I think I got it mainly because it might kind of help me with fairy tales, or just be a sort of another thing to think about when I teach my fairy tale courses, because I don't change a lot of the text. I'm rereading, Angela Carter and all the fairy tales. It's not that different, although I did change one article this year, big change for me. But it is a book that it might sort of inform the way I teach it, and it's it was a popular book. I don't know when it came out. I'm sorry, I'm so vague, but the book is called something to do with weird by this professor at Harvard, Joe Henrich. And it's about how Western educated industrialized, what's the RD? Anyway, the weird is an acronym for basically the West, people in the West, and how they've been the subject of most psychological studies, and kind of like trying to, it's a little bit like Jared Diamond. He's trying to sort of distill what makes us in the West different from everyone else, and not necessarily in a better way, I don't think. I mean, just because it's obvious that right now, we're kind of mainly to blame for all the bad stuff. So it's kind of a psychological take on, but it's sort of neutral. I don't think it's either negative. It's more like, well, why did Western society develop? What were the reasons for that? And he connects it to something to do with Catholicism in medieval times. And I'll get back to you when I have a look at this book. Hopefully it'll be something that I can get into. It's always a bit hit or miss with me in nonfiction. And I think part of my rabbit holing is, as I do that instead of reading the books, is that I kind of try and get enough info, and then I decide, oh, I'm not that interested in that. And so the site that gets where I put a dump of all these links to these reviews and stuff is Notion. I don't know if any of you use Notion. Maybe students use Notion, but it's actually quite nice for dumping stuff. And so, yeah, there's another person who I think I'll save him for another time. He's more philosophical and harder to explain the works of, I'll just say the name, Timothy Morton, but I'm not going to talk about him this week. The last book that I did and this was sort of the thing when you do these rabbit hole searches of stuff, is you find other stuff that's sort of tangential but still interesting. And one thing I really found that I really will want to get for my birthday or around my birthday, I know it's only August, but I'm already thinking about my birthday, is a new book. And I found sorry for not looking at the screen. It was Times Literary Supplement. And it's a new book about Maoris, my ancestors. My mother was from New Zealand, by one of the most respected anthropologists and public intellectuals of New Zealand. Anne Salmon has written a new book explaining the Maori culture and how it came to be. And it's sort of also about how their understandings of the world, and so it's called the Tears of Rangi. And I am very interested in that, so I think I'll get that. And it seems the Times Literary Supplement has a good review of it. And I'm also kind of interested in the Australian counterpart to that too. So the dream world, because the Aborigines were very different, and much sort of nomadic and not as warfaring, very sort of peace. They just weren't interested in. I mean, the Maori had a different structure, which I'll tell you more about when I read the book. But the dream world is beautiful, and the art connected to Aboriginal is just fantastic. And of course, there's now a new appreciation, because for so many years, including all the time I grew up in Australia, they were just treated horrifically. And I mean, there's also the genocide in Tasmania, which, yeah, so that's another thing that I will get into. I'm interested in that too. And actually, even there, I have to write back to someone who got in touch with me from my genealogical tree on Ancestor, and he's so I'm related to the Mackenzies, who a portion of them went to Jamaica, and they were had plantations there, which had a lot of slaves, and so. And this is a man who now who's British, and he's asking about, how are we related through the Mackenzies? And I think we are. We definitely are. I mean, yeah, but that's also kind of interesting. So, all these connections to the horrific things that we have done, as the colonialists have done, and but also just kind of interesting in terms of finding out about stuff. Let me see, have I forgotten anything? Oh yeah, the upshot of the ecological stuff is that I think I really need to give this book another go. Now, I started it on listening to it, and it didn't, and I think I just wasn't in the right frame of mind. But I think I really need to go back, because I do have this affinity for trees. Even just I don't know if you watched my Germany vlogs, there was that one tree. It was still kind of think about that tree a lot. It was spreading out so much, and then the other tree that I remember, and I wish I'd gone back to it. There was a pine tree a palm tree in Heidelberg, which didn't fit at all, and I always wanted to go up to that tree and say, hey, can you tell me your story? How'd you get here? The only palm tree in Heidelberg. You just don't see them in Germany. I mean, at least not in, maybe, I don't know. It was just very unusual. So this is a book I want to go back and try. I am sort of feeling daunted because I read so slowly, and I really think I need to sort of try and up my reading game a little bit in terms of the intensity or the seriousness. And so the rabbit holing is interesting, and it leads to a lot of new fun stuff, but it also kind of takes you away from the serious interaction with the books and actually the reading of them, and me with my social media. So anyway, been an interesting week. Full of stuff, full of thoughts, and maybe too much. And I think a part of the reason I'm doing this manic collecting interesting is that I'm heading into not being in charge of my own time as much, just being much more structured, which in a way I like, but I can't do that. I won't be able to do what I've been doing, this sort of looking at things for too long. So yeah, rather an interesting week, and I really enjoyed August. Now, there's a couple of other things I might do, which would be read German formulaic stuff. So I have on my Kindle the Mountain Doctor ones, which I might try. And then there's a German writer, Hedwig Kurz-Mahler, who's from the 19th century, and she wrote German romantic sort of rags to riches stories. And unfortunately, I didn't find a lot of English. There is one book that has translated into English, but it costs $250 or something. It's called The String of Pearls. But I'll do some more research, and I might pick up one of hers. But I think part of me kind of wants to just get back to my own, the Fontane and maybe something else. So we'll see. But it's been really fun with August, and I think it's good for me to do that, to first of all to participate in something booktubey now and then. I may still do the tags, and I actually have been tagged. There was one from Remembered Reads, the Beatles tag, and then there's another one that I didn't like the questions as much, the Chaucer one. But anyway, we'll see. Hope everyone's doing well, and sorry for the all over the placeness of this one. But yeah, hope you're reading good things. And some people say if you can't leave a comment, just leave an emoji, which would be fine. Just leave a little heart, a little thumbs up, and yeah. But that's fine. I understand, and I've watched quite a few, but I haven't commented, and so that's the difference sometimes. And in a way, I'm just kind of remembering I should do that too. But if I refrain, it's funny how I don't want to just leave a heart. I want to actually write something. So I'm saying maybe I should do what I'm telling you to do too. Yeah, it's fun. YouTube is so weird how we get kind of caught up in what should we do or shouldn't do. Hope everyone's doing well, and I will talk to you very soon, at the very latest next week. Bye-bye.